Hey cats, it's your midsole man EDDBUD here. Today I've got a shoe for you that the viewers have been very keen for me to test out since it's released, the max cushion model from ASICS, the SUPERBLAST. Crate loads of foam here in this one. Did I have a blast in it? Let's find out. Hey people, I've got the SUPERBLAST in hand here and I'm very excited for it. This one's clocking in at 281 grams or 10 ounces on the money for my UK 11, US 12. So it makes it a little bit heavier than the NOVABLAST. That was about 253 grams in my size. A huge midsole stack here. I'm measuring 49 millimeters back here in my size and about 41 millimeters in the forefoot. The majority of the foam that we do have in this shoe is FLYTEFOAM Turbo. That is the ASICS flagship stuff. We see that in their race shoes, the Metaspeed Sky Plus and the Metaspeed Edge Plus. It's a bit more brittle, it's more of a rebound like foam. It doesn't have that overt squish that we see in ZOOMX. Oddly, the rest of the midsole here is the FLYTEFOAM Blast Plus material. That is that slither that we get on the bottom section of the shoe. It's a slightly denser foam and it makes up the area that contacts the floor. I've got a Shore A reading of 32 there for softness. If you imagine 28 is about the average, so you'd be surprised to hear that I get a measurement of 36 for the FLYTEFOAM Turbo material. So don't anticipate this shoe as being one of the softest out there. If you want super squish, then this probably isn't the one for you. I've got about 12.2 centimeters here in the forefoot at the widest point and about 9.2 in the heel. So it is one of the wider landing platform shoes that you can get. This is a shoe that ASICS have sent over to me for the purpose of review, but they're not paying me to make this video, nor will they be vetting my views before my valued viewers. This one's coming in about 195 Earth credits at retail. It's a big price, though I have spotted them discounted as low as 109 at the Slam Jam website. Only in smaller sizes and very low quantities though. Before we get into the review, if you're finding the videos very helpful on the channel, do hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. It really does help us out. We'll start with the upper first. I have to say this shoe looks absolutely fantastic in hand. I really love the colorway. I love that upper design. It is a thing of beauty. I may even consider wearing it down the pub. We have a thin engineered mesh here, which is very simple, no elaborate overlays, and a somewhat wider toe box than what we've been experiencing in recent ASICS shoes. It does quickly point in a little bit towards the front of the toe box, but I found it had loads of room there and some ample height. Should accommodate the larger toed runners amongst us. I have to say I've really enjoyed this upper over my initial testing. The only very slightly odd thing I suppose is the laces. They are very thin, very stretchy. They make getting the lockdown in the shoe a little bit more difficult than it should be. They kind of spring back a little bit while you're trying to dial in the tension. You know with this type of shoe that it's really important to get that sort of tension correct over the top of the foot. Perhaps a lace swap could be on the cards here for the SUPERBLAST. Length is good, but I did have to re-tighten the shoe on my initial outing just to get it right. It's not really a big problem, just a bit of an annoyance I suppose. Padding is appropriate across the top of the tongue there. There's two sections. They're in just the right place to alleviate the pressure. There's very usable amounts of padding here in the heel. There is a traditional counter there, so if you're a bit worried about sort of heel slip or anything, you can rest easy. You got a simple pull tab here as well if you really need it, but I think if you untie and retie your shoes when you put them on, which is probably something you should do, then you're not going to need it. I've used this shoe with standard socks and some toe socks as well. I found there to be ample sort of toe box room here. No rubbing or hot spots to report at all, in fact, over the 13 miles of testing. The tongue is partially gusseted. There's not an awful lot there though, just some sort of elastic-like material to try and sort of grip the tongue around and stop it from moving around. You don't get any tongue slip here. In warmer weather, I found the upper of the shoe to be very breathable, very workable for this type of condition, and I really love the upper, actually, aside from that odd lacing issue. I had a really great fit, in fact, when I got it just right. It did take a little bit of time to dial it in, and that is imperative with the midsole nature of the shoe, but I'll get into that in a minute. Materials are comfortable. I have now managed to sort of resolve that lacing issue, though I will experiment with some other laces soon. But up to now, I can't complain at all. An incredibly comfortable upper that's been crafted by ASICS here. I'm going to give it a 2.9 out of 3 for the upper after my initial runs. Midsole, midsole.
Midsole now.
We have a huge stack of foam here in the Superblast, cannot be denied, though this is no ASICS Invincible Run. The Superblast certainly more of a trampoline-like shoe. I think if you've liked the Nova Blast series up to now, then I think you're probably going to enjoy the Superblast. Now, one thing I found it a bit difficult to contend with on my initial run, trying to run an easy sort of effort with very sort of fast cadence, just sort of skipping along, that didn't work with this shoe. It really does want you to lift your knees up and increase that stride length, so you're sort of bouncing along with it. That's how it felt best to me. Once I did that, I found my heart rate plummeting downwards, and it was just a really quite joyous experience. I felt a little bit like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh, you know, as he's sort of springing along. That's kind of how this shoe wants to make you run. So if you like your shoes to just sort of adapt to what you do, then maybe it's not the best one, but you can get a really wonderful sort of bouncing stride going with this shoe. I think that's a little bit down to the midsole combination that we've got here. It's really been growing on me after the first 13 miles of testing. Could be a great long range sort of steady pace shoe for my use anyway. I would still classify it as a lightweight trainer as well, considering the actual sort of weight of the shoe. It's not right up there with some of the others like the Nimbus 25 or the Invincible Run. Is it bouncier than the Nova Blast 3? Yes, it absolutely is. You have to consider as well that the Nova Blast 3 is about 28 grams lighter than this one, so that's about an ounce or something. I think it's no doubt going to appeal to people that want a really forgiving, easy shoe. I mean, you can run some very easy sort of 30-minute sessions here, though I've been finding I'm running that little bit faster because the shoe just sort of propels you on forwards. Not in the same way that perhaps the Metaspeed Sky Plus does. That is an out-and-out race shoe when you really want to get up onto that mid to forefoot. Though of course we do have a mass of that FLYTEFOAM Turbo here, which is ASICS flagship foam. I do feel this will no doubt save the legs of runners across the training week. For those longer or slower steady efforts, I think the Superblast is going to feel a little bit like a feather compared to the Nimbus 25. There's a huge weight difference between those two shoes, about 74 grams, way over 2.5 ounces. So they are very different shoes. I will do a comparison between those at some point. There are a lot of differences. Some people, I suppose, may find the range or use case of this shoe a little bit dictated by the price. I mean, this has got all of the latest ASICS tech built into the midsole. I think this is certainly a shoe that you could make use of if you're doing half or full marathon training. Perhaps if you're just running 5 or 10 Ks or something, it's probably not something you need. I mean, it does look absolutely huge in terms of the stack, but some of this foam does actually cup up and around the back of the foot, but there's still a good 49mm of stack here. So a bit of an odd choice, I suppose, considering that Nike have chosen with the Invincible Run just to put that foam underneath the foot rather than sort of anywhere around it. Though I have to say, this choice does give the Superblast a nice stable feel underfoot. For my slender frame though, it does feel more of a responsive shoe compared to something like the Invincible Run. You haven't got that avert squash that you have within that one. It can be very unstable for some people. I don't think you'll get the same problem with the Superblast. Now, is it better than the Prime X Strung from Adidas? I don't think I find this shoe quite as exciting or bouncy as that one. Not to say that it's a bad shoe, it's just a different shoe. It's like a different shade of that sort of max cushion vibe. There's a bit more response here. Almost feels as if I could run faster in it without sort of worrying about turning my ankle or perhaps flying off in the wrong direction. It's a bit more under control, I suppose. I'm going to give this a strong 2.8 out of 3 for the midsole after my initial runs. It did take some miles to break in. Many of the viewers did mention that to me. I feel that it has done that now. It's a really nice cushioned rolling ride. Ideal, I suppose, for my steady runs. And it's left my legs feeling absolutely fantastic as well after I've used it. Outsole now. Outsole wise, we have quite a thick application of rubber here on the underside of the shoe. The depth's pretty considerable, though I think that's a good design choice considering how soft and sort of squashy the lower layer of that FLYTEFOAM Blast Plus material is. It compresses quite a bit, so you don't really want the foam having too much contact with the floor. They have improved the rubber though here. It's got a lot more sort of coarse pitted sort of nature to it. I disliked that about the Nova Blast 3. In fact, I found the Nova Blast 3 not dangerous but very slippery, I suppose, on some surfaces where we've had some rain. That isn't the case here in the Superblast. It just ate it up like a hungry rabbit. Squirrel? I don't know. One of those, you know what I mean. You do have that sort of central rubber section here in the forefoot, so you do get that like trampoline sort of effect where the foam sort of compresses up and around it and then sort of springs back again. There's not a huge amount of exposed midsole material here though. I found the FLYTEFOAM Blast Plus stuff to be reasonably durable. They have cut back some of the areas of that foam, so you can see some of the exposed FLYTEFOAM Turbo through these holes, and that's really the only major disadvantage of the outsole. I'm going to kind of score it down a little bit. I did get quite a lot of debris caught up in here, and it's really hard to actually get rid of it. Lots of mud, stones and little bits of twig. I think if you're running through an area where there's lots of that debris, then just bear it in mind. That aside, outsole, big improvement over the Nova Blast 3. Acceptable grip here, and where the rubber's positioned, it does enable quite a good amount of flex in the forefoot. Seems durable enough so far, and it's worked on multiple surfaces, so that only major concern is the debris build up here that you will undoubtedly see. It's not too many places for rocks to get caught in the rubber though, so you might be alright from that aspect. I'll give it a 2.8 out of 3 for the outsole after my initial runs. We're talking value now. Can't really escape the price on this one, £195. There's even a colourway that's £210 on the ASICS website, so it's going to appeal to those who have a very fat pocketbook, or perhaps the most inquisitive of runners. I've been lucky enough to test it out for you. Been a while. I've been trying to get hold of this shoe to test for some time, but I'm really glad to have it in hand now. It really does hit the spot for me. I think this is a big step up from the Nova Blast in many ways. We have some of the positive points of that shoe, but a lot of the negatives have been removed. I think the fit of the upper is way more on point for me. The cushioning, a big step forward, no pun intended, and it creates the bounciest, most responsive ASICS midsole up to now. I've even improved the outsole rubber here. It's far less smooth, more coarse, you just got loads more grip. I can actually see people racing in this shoe. I think it is of the appropriate weight for that. The amount of cushions there, the upper's simple. I mean, it's not a huge departure in terms of the upper from the ASICS Metaspeed Sky Plus. Yes, there's always going to be a chorus of people saying,
"It's not race legal, it's too high."
But I don't really see that many people caring about that if they're doing a half or full marathon. If you're not some elite level runner or something, then I just don't think it matters. I think this one could also double up as a trainer as well for those events. I believe it will be durable enough for that type of use. There's enough protection of the FLYTEFOAM Turbo from the other applications to make sure that it will last the test of time. I think if you want the invincible squash, then this shoe isn't going to be for you. If you want the avert softness of some of the New Balance models, then again, look that way rather than here. I think the Superblast is more of the Millennium Falcon than like a very nimble, sprightly A-wing. A very simple shoe that cuts out the bells and whistles. One of the best uppers I've tried in a long time too. And you have the wider landing base as well. You can kind of think Infinity Run versus an ASICS Metaspeed Sky. Quality out the box is exceptional actually. There's no glue marks, no sort of weird stitching anywhere, unfinished or poorly centered stuff. Just looks like some care's been taken, and you would expect that really for this price point. So this is a shoe that I think could cover multiple bases in training and for racing. Could offer a load of value actually and fill in lots of places within your shoe rotation. I'm going to give it a 2.7 out of 3 for value. I do think it's worth it. Only lowered perhaps because it's getting a little bit too close to the price of a Vaporfly or an Adios Pro 3. Is it better than the Prime X? I don't think it is for me personally, but I think for a lot of you out there that want something that's a little bit more stable yet still responsive, then this could be the one for you. If I've totaled the scores up correctly, that gives us 11.2 out of 12 for the ASICS Superblast. I think it was Chris Minto in the comments mentioned he got like 400 miles into this shoe and it was still doing fine. I have to say I've really enjoyed testing this one out initially. I think it's going to be one of my favourites of the year. Have you tried the Superblast out from ASICS? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. Very quick musical interlude for you. Hopefully you guys have been lucky enough to check out the Pretenders set at Glastonbury 2023. Absolutely fantastic guitar tones there. Some of the best I've heard in years and years. Checking back into the 2020 album from the Pretenders, which is entitled Hate for Sale. There's some winners on here, some brilliant riffage. Worth checking out is the Buzz, Turf Accountant Daddy, and Didn't Want to Be This Lonely as well. The lead guitar player, I think he's got a single pickup SG. That man can play. Oh my gosh. You really need to check out the Pretenders set at Glastonbury. He's got stage presence, he's got the lot. I did comment about the Pretenders the other day and how good Chrissie Hynde sounded with these real clear, concise recordings of some of those newer tracks. You can see why there were so many people there to watch them. Go and check it out, guys. Hate for Sale by the Pretenders. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you enjoyed today's review. If you've got any more questions you want to ask me about the Superblast and my experiences with it, let me know down in the comments. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you